Hi friends, welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Shannon. I'm a homeschool mom to a 4th grader, soon to be 5th grader next year. And in today's video, I wanted to talk to you about shopping my shelves. Okay, so lately I've been watching a lot of curriculum review videos, and honestly it started making me feel like I needed more than we actually do. And whenever I start to get into that mindset, I like to shop my shelves instead. I don't always remember that this is an option, but I'm trying really hard to make this habitual. So for this shelf shopping session, I wanted to focus specifically on resources that could help round out our 5th grade studies next year. I'm not trying to replace the curriculum we already have. I'm not building an entirely new plan, just looking to add depth, enrichment, maybe seasonal fun, or hands-on ideas to what we're already doing. So what I did was pull books, starting with just 2 of our shelves in our little library area. I intentionally limited myself because I also didn't want this to feel overwhelming. Then I sat down and I flipped through everything page by page to see what connected to topics we're covering next year, what activities I forgot we had, what seasonal tie-ins I could use, and what ideas could help make subjects feel more rich and memorable. And honestly, even if I don't use every single thing I pulled, just reminding myself what we already have is still incredibly helpful for me. The biggest thing for me is making sure I plan these out in Trello so they actually happen. Because if I just pull everything and then I note down the things that I want to do, like on a post-it or on a piece of paper somewhere, that gets tucked away and out of sight, out of mind. I completely forget to actually implement it. So getting it in Trello guarantees, well, no, there's no guarantee. It is much more likely to happen if I get it in Trello. And I wanted to share this journey with you guys. Hopefully I'm going to do this more often. I still have other shelves I want to go through, but also maybe this gives you guys ideas to either shop your shelves or maybe remind you of something that you already have on your shelves too. Or just gives you ideas for resources that you do want to get. So starting with ELA, the first thing I did is I pulled this, the Creative Teacher book. This book is filled with creative activities, projects, and some reproducibles. I especially like it for adding more hands-on creative elements to our lessons. And I found a couple ideas in here that could be fun to use next year. One I really liked was this lunch bag book report idea. So it comes with the student guidelines and the materials needed. And honestly, this is all materials I probably already have at home. And then it gives you like visual. And I just thought this might be a fun way to do a book report. Another thing I noted is just the additional ideas for responding to literature. And the ones specifically I noted from here were creating a collage, and then writing a plot for a sequel, and making bookmarks using key story elements. And I just love having these ideas on hand because sometimes you just need to switch it up, and this book is really good for that. Just to show you a little bit about this book, it doesn't just do ELA. That's just the things that I saw in here that I would use it for next year. But it actually covers math, writing, science, social studies, and art. And I do like that it'll tell you the grade that the project is for. Okay, so for example, the book brochure, can be anywhere from grades 4 to 12. And so it can be as, complex or simple as you make it. So yeah, this is just a fun resource. There's a lot of great ideas in here, and there is a lot of reproducible, so things that you could copy for the student. So like this one, if you create this little character, you probably wouldn't need the reproducibles for that, but I mean, they have them in there, the legs, the arms, the head, and then it shows you how to build it. Okay, next let's talk about what I pulled for science. Okay, for science, I found several things in both Nature Anatomy and The Wondrous Workings of Planet Earth. So Nature Anatomy is one of those visually rich, browsable books that's full of informational blurbs and illustrations. I personally love books like this for enrichment, rabbit trails, but mostly we use these for artistic inspiration. In fact, everything I flagged, I noted in my notes to use as painting inspirations. So when we're learning about our certain topics, we can paint about them, paint something, in theme with them, using this book as inspiration. Okay, so let's go through and see what I flagged in here for science. And these specifically are topics we'll be covering when we're going over our state standards, because the first half of our year, we're going to be going over human anatomy. And then the second half of the year, we're going to be just going down the list of our state standards. And that's where actually both of these books will come into play. Okay, so the first thing I flagged was the water cycle. And again, I flagged this for inspiration for us to either draw or paint a version of it when we're covering this topic. And again, this book really just has like a lot of informational blurbs and stuff like that. It's not the meat of what our lesson would be at all. And then the other thing was the atmosphere. That's something that we're going to be covering in our standards. So that's what I flagged for science. There's a bunch of other flags in here, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the other book I pulled for science was The Wondrous Workings of Planet Earth. And this book really works well as an enrichment resource, focusing on ecosystems. It's very visual and approachable, and it's more meaty than Nature Anatomy, but it still gives great art inspiration. And what I found in this book, we would also be covering for our standards. Okay, so what I flagged for science in this book is also the water cycle. And I just find it so interesting how different, the same concept can look. What was the water cycle in here? 46. Like, it's the same, but it's different. And then this one has more detail with like the names of the clouds and stuff like that. So that's fun. And again, this one is just much more meaty when it comes to, sorry for the glare, the information that's in here. Okay, so the other thing is just ecosystems in general. And then the flow of energy, that's something that's part of our standards. Classification. I can't remember if classification was part of our standards or if I flagged this to tie into our Pokemon lab. I have to go back and look at our standards and check, but I remember seeing this and thinking, oh, this is one way we can tie in classifying things as we go through her Pokemon lab science. Okay, and then the reason you see so much more flags in both of these books is because the other subject that we would be using these for, where they tie in really well, is nature studies. And so for nature studies, I found stuff in the same two books, and I have flagged in Nature Anatomy phases of the moon. And I honestly have so many resources when it comes to phases of the moon. One of the things that I liked about this one, and I'm not saying that the other resources don't have this. I don't remember them having this. But one of the things that I really liked is how simple it is to follow, and that they give you where the sun is when these phases are facing. So I'm going to compare this to what we have, and this could be in addition to when we cover the moon. We'll be covering the moon during spooky season. And there's two other things that I found in here that we plan on covering during spooky season, and that's bats and spiders. So you have some spiders. And then anatomy of a bat. And we're going to be covering all three of those topics during our spooky season for a nature study. And one other thing we were going to cover for nature studies was the anatomy of a bird. And we could use some of these other bird pages as well. I'm not sure yet. I still have to fully plan out our nature studies. And I actually just got a new nature study curriculum coming in, so I want to see how this is all going to play together. But what I have right now is there's a lot of bird coverage. So now let's look at what I wanted to use for nature study in the Planet Earth book. Okay, so I got stages of germination noted. Really like that it talks about the macronutrients a plant needs. I like that a lot. And then just this plant diagram, which I have to look. I have an odds and ends video that I have a pile started for, and I just got a new book that I think this diagram is probably in, but I flagged it just in case it's not. So then that would wrap up what I have flagged for nature study. So next we'll talk about geography. Okay, so for geography, we're doing 50 states. And as we cover the 50 states and the landscape of the US, I'll be naturally working in biomes. And so there's some good pages in this book for biomes. So I like this biome map that for the world, and then it also has just North America. And I thought this could be fun to recreate in some artistic way, whether it be color pencils or paint. Probably color pencils. But yeah, so I have this flagged for that. And then in Nature Anatomy, there are beautiful North American landscape pages that we could also use for art inspiration, starting on page 30. Did I say biomes? If I did, I meant landscapes. And so as we cover these areas that would have these landscapes, we could use that as artistic inspiration as well. Okay, and then the very last thing I have flagged in the Planet Earth book, and I love that, honestly, that this one book has, you know, multiple subjects that I feel I could use it for. But we always like to do something for Earth Day, and I totally forgot that this has a whole humans and planet Earth section. And so we can go through here. Human impacts on nature. Protecting our planet. I'll go through here and decide what exactly we want to do. And it goes into the glossary. But I have this flagged and noted to look at this when I'm pulling together our Planet Earth unit. So last is history. For history, I pulled out Chronos History. This is a timeline style history resource book. It's packed with resource ideas and covers major historical events, people, and periods. Right now, what we're going to do for 5th grade is America's history from 1215 to 1791. And so with that in mind, I went through this book and found those time periods, which would be discovery of the New World, the first Americans, the American colonies, the American Revolution, and then part of the new nation. And this book also reminded me that we have an ink and quill set, and now I have to like make sure to Trello that, and so we can work in that activity. So this book is awesome. If you've never seen this book, and what I had just mentioned is not everything this book covers. Let me find the... Okay, here it is. Here's everything that this book covers. Let me see if I can zoom in for you. So it goes all the way from the Stone Age, and then contemporary America, and then it goes into branches of government, election process, how laws are made, historical documents, and American symbols and landmarks. Oops. So basically, the time frame that I shared with you guys, what I did was, so for example, discovery of the New World. This is how she has this book laid out, the author. So you have discovery of the New World, and then the dates that it covers. She always has an introduction, questions to ask, her primary sources, and then general spines, series and reference books, web resources, YouTube videos, and she breaks them down: elementary, middle, high school, and then a list of fiction and nonfiction books. She puts the age they might be appropriate for, the period, you have the title, the author. And so I went through all the different time periods that we're covering that fall within our history next year. And I went through all the book lists, and I looked at all the books that were age appropriate, and then decided if it was something that we wanted to get at the library or if I did want to buy it. And basically that's what I did for every section that we were covering. She also has on here people to know and enrichment activities. And there was actually a lot of enrichment activities that I found really helpful too. Most of the ones that I had flagged were, let me see, none of these ones. I think she's called the Creative Teacher. But I did end up with a ton of books to add. Yeah, it's so weird that I don't see. Oh, the Clever Teacher, thecleverteacher.com. She has a lot of free resources. She has a lot of paid resources too, but a lot of really awesome free resources linked in here. This book is just packed with resources for history. So this definitely is one that I saw it on somebody's YouTube page when I first started homeschooling. We've been homeschooling since kindergarten. She's always been homeschooled. And so I bought this right away because I was like, I can see using this book, I mean, all throughout high school. So it's just one of those things where you buy it in the beginning and then you're using it year after year after year, and you feel like you really get a bang for your buck. So that was the last resource that I shopped on my shelf. And honestly, this was just a good reminder that I already own so many amazing resources that I just need to be more intentional about using. And I think sometimes it's easy to keep looking for the next thing when really we can add so much richness to our homeschool just by revisiting what we already have. Now, I'm not saying I won't be influenced to buy the next shiny review that comes out and it looks like it would be a huge success in our homeschool, but I do feel better about myself when I use what we already have. Speaking of, like I said earlier in the video, I have a pile of odds and ends to film of stuff that I have bought new coming up soon. So if you've watched this far, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I've been getting a lot of comments on some of my videos lately, and I just love hearing from you, and I appreciate you all so much. And any person that I help in any way, that's my goal. So thank you. I appreciate you. And until next time, bye.